My name's Michael Turner, 29, financial analyst. On paper, I had what you're supposed to aim for. Decent money at a reputable firm, a 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood with trimmed hedges and identical mailboxes, and a wife, Lauren, who looked like the kind of woman you build a life with, not a story like this. Our life ran on routines. I was the numbers guy, alarms, budgets, calendar reminders. Lauren was the steady one. Hospital shifts, meal prep on Sundays, calling her mom every Wednesday night. And every Sunday afternoon, like clockwork, she'd go to the salon. It never bothered me. She'd leave around 2, come back around 5. New color, fresh shape, that faint chemical smell on her hands. Sometimes she'd show me, "What do you think?" I'd kiss her knuckles and say something simple like, "Looks good, babe." It was predictable. Predictable felt safe. The shift started small. "Monica squeezed me in after work," she said one Tuesday. "I'm just gonna stop by the salon. Be home a little late." I didn't think twice. People change routines. Nurses get stressed. Self-care, right? She came home past 8. Same red nails she'd had for a week. I noticed it in the doorway when she reached for her bag. Same exact shade. Same tiny chip on the left thumb. "They look nice," I said. "Thanks." She shot back. Too quick, too flat. No little smile. No pause to actually show them off. My job trained me to see patterns. You stare at enough spreadsheets, you start catching tiny inconsistencies without trying. That first night, I filed it away like a line item that didn't match the ledger. Could be nothing. Could be the start of something. The second week, it was nude pink. She'd left on Thursday after her shift, stopping by Monica's again. Came home late, hair a little messy. Same nude pink she'd been wearing since Sunday. No gloss change, no shape, nothing. "You get them done?" I asked casual. "Yeah, of course," she said, dropping her purse on the table. "You don't notice anything." I looked at her hands. I did notice something. I noticed that nothing had changed. "Looks good," I said anyway. Something cold settled in my gut. Not fire, not rage, just a quiet, heavy weight. The kind you get when a formula that's always balanced suddenly doesn't. I'm not a hothead. I don't go off over gut feelings and shadows. But from that night on, every time she said salon, my brain didn't hear self-care. It heard. Anomaly detected. And once I see a pattern, I don't see it. Once I knew something was off, I did what I always do when numbers don't add up. I went looking for better data. No fights. No accusations. No, "we need to talk" speeches. Just at lunch hour, downtown, sun hitting the bank windows while I walked into an electronics store like a man buying an extra lock for a door he already knew was broken. The kid in the blue polo launched into his script, heart rate, sleep tracking, GPS, notification mirroring. I barely heard him. I already knew what I needed. Something that would log where my wife actually spent her time when she said, "The salon." "I'll take that one," I said, pointing at the top-of-the-line model in the display. Stainless steel, soft band, premium price. Love with a warranty. He rang it up, slid the box across the counter. I told myself I was buying peace of mind. Truth is, I was buying confirmation one way or the other. That night, I got home early and turned our kitchen into a scene. Candles. Real ones, not the scented crap. Pasta on the stove. Our wedding song played low from the little Bluetooth speaker. I poured a glass of red and waited. For once, she walked in right at 6. Scrub still on. Hair pulled back. Hospital fatigue stamped on her face. No mysterious extra stop. No salon lie. For a second, I felt stupid. Paranoid. Like a kid who checks under the bed for monsters in broad daylight. She stopped in the doorway looking around. "What's all this?" "Just us," I said. "Sit down. You've been running yourself into the ground." Her shoulders dropped a little. Not guilt, relief. That stung more than I expected. We ate, talked about nothing. Her patience, my idiot coworker who kept messing up reports. I laughed in the right places. I watched her hands when she reached for her glass. Same nude pink. Same story. When the plates were pushed aside and the song looped for the third time, I reached into the drawer and pulled out the wrapped box. Silver paper, clean corners. I slid it across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Early anniversary," I said. "You take care of everyone but yourself. I figured this could help me keep you around a little longer." She peeled the paper back, lifted the lid. Her eyes widened, real reaction. "Michael, this is expensive. You're worth it," I said. That part wasn't a lie. She stood, came around the table, kissed me, arms around my neck. I kissed her back, steady, already picturing the app icon waiting on my phone. We set it up right there at the table. Paired to her phone first, step tracking, heart rate, sleep. Then I added the family health feature, linking it to my account. A nice, soft label for what it really was. Surveillance with a bow on it. "This way I can nag you about your sleep and steps," I joked. "Gives me something new to worry about." She laughed, wiping at her eyes. "You're such a nerd. But, thank you. Really." She strapped it on, turning her wrist so the screen lit up. I watched the numbers flash: time, battery, heart rate. Somewhere beneath that, in the settings, location services quietly switched to on. Guilt sat on one shoulder. Dread sat on the other. Between them was the simple, ugly truth. If she was faithful, this watch would clear her. If she wasn't, it would hang both of them in cold, precise data. And I've always trusted numbers more than promises. For the first few days, the watch made me feel like an idiot. Monday, her blue dot sat at the hospital from before sunrise to mid-afternoon. Then the drive home, a 10-minute stop at the grocery store, back to our street. Tuesday, hospital, Target, gas station, home. Wednesday, hospital, gym, home. Everything lined up clean. Exactly where she said she was when she said she was there. I'd lie in bed at night, scrolling through the logs like an addict. Heart rate spikes during her shift, steady at home on the couch. GPS trails that matched her stories beat for beat. More than once, I thought about uninstalling the app, writing it off as one long, ugly overreaction. Then Thursday happened. I was at my desk, buried in spreadsheets. Numbers, ratios, red cells all blurring together. Out of habit more than suspicion, I thumbed my phone open and checked the app. A few seconds later, a text came in from Lauren. "Leaving now, honey. Stopping by Monica's salon. Home around 8. Love you." I watched the blue dot move off the hospital lot, head west. My eyes flicked between the phone and my monitor, half distracted. Then the dot stopped. I zoomed in. Not Monica's salon. Not even close. Just off the highway, squatting by itself, was a rundown roadside motel. Peeling paint. Sun-faded roof. The map showed the name in cheap block letters, the kind of place that rents rooms by the hour and doesn't ask questions. My stomach dropped like an elevator cut loose. I checked the GPS log. It had been there 10 minutes. 15. 20. No movement. I argued with myself like a coward. Maybe she's helping a coworker. Maybe she pulled over for a medical emergency. Maybe the GPS glitched. I hit call. "Hey," she answered bright. "At Monica's. Busy as always. Might be closer to 8:30. No dryers. No women talking. No music. Just the faint, can sound of a TV somewhere." "Yeah," I said calmly, grabbing my keys. "Are you getting anything done?" "Yeah. Just waiting my turn," she replied. I walked out of my office, phone to my ear, that blue dot still parked on the motel like a confession. Whatever hope I had left was riding in the passenger seat when I pulled onto the highway. The motel looked worse in person. Moisture stains creeping down the walls. A flickering fluorescent sign missing half its letters. Cracked asphalt with weeds pushing through. One black pickup parked outside a room near the end. My app said the watch was in that room. No margin of error. No glitch. The call was still live. Lauren's voice floated in my ear, light, controlled. "Yeah, it's taking longer than I thought. Have you eaten yet?" Behind her, no salon noise, no dryers, no chatter, just the muted thump of a TV through a wall. I stopped across the street, engine off, phone in one hand, the other in my pocket. I opened the app's Find Device feature. One button, play sound on watch. My thumb hover. You know I love you, right? She said. Yeah. I answered calm. Hold on a second, honey. Then I pressed it. A piercing beeping exploded through the phone. Shrill, panicked, impossible to ignore. There was a sharp intake of breath on her end, fabric rustling, a muffled male voice. What the hell is that? It's just a glitch, she stammered. I don't know. I cut her off quietly. That really is weird, Lauren, I said, eyes on that one door by the black pickup. Because I'm hearing that beep too, right out here in front of the motel. Silence. Then the line went dead. I crossed the street. No rush, no theatrics, just steady steps over broken pavement. The door flew open. Lauren stumbled out first. Mascara smeared, blouse misbuttoned, hair a mess no salon would claim. She froze when she saw me. Michael, it's not what? Behind her, he appeared. Josh Miller, my best friend since college. The guy who gave the toast at my wedding. He stepped out adjusting his t-shirt, face draining of color as our eyes met. My best man, I said, voice low even. My brother. He dropped his gaze to the ground. Didn't say a word. At that moment, the story rewrote itself. I didn't just lose a wife in that room. I buried a friendship too. I took my ring off in the gravel. It felt heavier than it should for a thin band of metal. 3.5 years sat in my palm. Vows, arguments, inside jokes, lazy Sundays, all compressed into a circle. Lauren was still talking, voice breaking, grabbing at explanations that didn't exist. Michael, please, just let me. I didn't answer. I looked at the ring one last time, then flicked it toward the drainage ditch. It flashed once in the light and disappeared into leaves and muck. She dropped to her knees in the gravel, scrambling for it with shaking hands. That's the last image I kept of her as my wife. I walked to my car without turning back. No slamming doors, no screaming. Just the sound of my own breathing, too loud in my ears. When I hit the highway, the tears finally came. Not loud, not dramatic. Just steady. Eyelids burning, jaw clenched, hands locked at 10 and 2. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my face was dry again. Inside, the house felt wrong. Too quiet, too clean, like a stage set after the actors go home. I went straight to the bedroom, grabbed the biggest suitcase we owned, threw it on the bed, and unzipped it. I didn't fold anything. Dresses, jeans, scrubs, underwear. Everything went in the same way it came out. Fast, cold, efficient. The outfits I used to compliment looked like costumes now. Uniforms for a life she'd already walked out of long before the motel. I cleared her side of the closet. Her drawers, the bathroom counter, makeup, hair products, lotions into a second bag, toothbrush into the trash. Trip after trip, I hauled her things into the garage and lined the suitcases up against the wall like packed evidence. For in total, a whole marriage compressed into luggage. Then I sat on the couch in the living room with the TV off and waited. The clock ticked. The house creaked. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. My phone stayed silent. Good. I wanted her to walk into it unprepared. The front door opened just before 9. She stepped in, eyes red, face blotchy. She froze when she saw me sitting there with nothing on. No TV, no music, no distraction. Michael, can we please talk? She asked, voice small. We are talking, I said. Your stuff's in the garage. She blinked. What? Your clothes. Your things. You can stay with your mom. Tomorrow I will call a lawyer. She crossed the room fast, reaching for my arm. This is my home too. You can't just... I pulled my arm back, calm. You lost the right to call this home when you took what we built into a roadside motel with my best friend. She shook her head, already crying again. It was a mistake. It didn't mean. I don't care what it meant to you. I cut in. I care what it is. You lied. Repeatedly. You used my trust like a credit card you never planned on paying off. Her mouth opened, closed. Can't we at least try counseling? Just talk to someone? We can fix this. No, I said. You broke it. I'm not patching over rot. Silence dropped between us. Heavy. Final. Please, she whispered. I love you. I looked at her like I was looking at a stranger who happened to know my passwords. You love what I provide. You don't love me. If you did, we wouldn't be here. I stood up. She flinched like she expected me to yell, throw something, grab something. I just walked to the door, opened it, and nodded toward the garage. Your bags are that way, I said. You're not sleeping here tonight. Her face crumpled. So that's it. That's it, I said. The rest, we'll let the lawyers handle it. She hesitated, waiting for me to soften, to backtrack, to give her some vague "we'll see." I didn't. Eventually, she moved past me out to the garage. I heard the suitcase wheels scrape along the concrete. The last thing I heard was the front door closing behind her and the final, simple sound of a key sliding onto the entry table. A key that wouldn't fit my lock much longer. The morning after I kicked her out, I walked into a divorce attorney's office with a folder under my arm and no intention of turning back. The guy was mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. He didn't waste time on sympathy. What do you have? He asked. I laid it out on his desk like an audit. Printouts of the GPS logs from the smartwatch app. Dates, times, coordinates. A neat little column showing repeated visits to the same roadside motel, always when she claimed she was at the salon. Screenshots of messages from our shared email, confirmation emails, random slips she forgot to delete. Later, we added a written statement from a motel employee who recognized her picture and Josh's. Yeah, seen them a few times, the guy had said. Same room, cash up front. My lawyer flipped through everything, expression barely changing. This is good, he said. Cold, documented. Judges like patterns. What about the tracking? I asked. Privacy stuff. He shrugged. You gave her the watch. It was a health and safety device. We frame it that way. Worst case, they complain. Best case, it paints you as a concerned husband with receipts. 3 months of grind followed. Depositions, paperwork, mediation sessions that went nowhere. Lauren's attorney tried hard to turn me into the problem. Said the watch was controlling, invasive. Lauren cried on cue, said I was distant, married to my job, that she'd felt alone long before Josh. I let my lawyer talk. I didn't rise to any bait. When I had to speak, I kept it short and factual. The judge listened to everything, but the weight kept sliding back to the same place. Her lies, the motel visits, the overlap between salon text messages and GPS logs proving otherwise. The final nail was Josh on the stand. Under oath, he admitted it. Called it a mistake. Said it just happened. Like they'd both tripped and fallen into that motel multiple times. The air in the courtroom went cold. When it was done, the judgment was clean. Adultery recognized. House stays with me. Asset split leaning heavily my way. No alimony, marriage under 10 years. And she's a nurse with a solid income. She walked out with less than she thought she'd get. I walked out with less than I started with, but more than I expected. My name, my house, my line in the sand. The fallout didn't stop at the courthouse doors. Josh's fiancée, Rebecca, mailed his ring back in a padded envelope and moved out of their apartment. Our friend group didn't vote on it. They just slowly stopped inviting him. He became the empty chair at dinners, the name nobody wanted to say out loud. At Lauren's hospital, word got around. You can't hide that kind of mess in a place where gossip moves faster than lab results. She kept her job, sure, but not her reputation. They thought they were risking getting caught. What they actually risked was their entire social credit line getting cut off in one shot. And that's exactly what happened. Winning the house in court didn't feel like winning. Every time I walked through it, the place felt contaminated. The kitchen where she'd texted him while stirring sauce. The hallway she'd paced, lying about running late at the salon. Our bedroom, which just felt like a crime scene with clean sheets. So I sold it. My lawyer thought I was crazy. Friends called it emotional. Maybe it was. I didn't care. I listed it, signed the papers, packed my life into boxes, and left the keys on the counter for a young couple who still believed in forever. I bought a modern apartment closer to work. White walls, clean lines, no history. The first night I slept there on a mattress on the floor. I stared at the ceiling and realized how quiet my head was without those old walls talking. I also did something a lot of men avoid. I found a therapist. Not because I was shattered beyond repair, but because I didn't want this mess to become my permanent operating system. She was blunt, mid-50s, no sugarcoating. Every time I tried to blame myself if I'd worked less, if I'd been more romantic, she shut it down. She didn't cheat because you weren't perfect, she said. She cheated because she wasn't honest. Week by week, the knot in my chest loosened. I stopped replaying the motel in my head like a movie on loop. It became a file, ugly, but archived. A few months later, I went to an art exhibit with a coworker. I almost didn't go. Crowds, small talk, fake deep conversations about paintings. I wasn't in the mood. That's where I met Elena Morales. Architect, 31. Also divorced. No fake optimism, no oversharing. Just a woman who'd also watched a future burn down and decided to keep walking anyway. We started with coffee, then walks, then dinners. No big speeches. No, you're my everything. Just two people comparing scars without trying to outdo each other. The pain didn't disappear. It just stopped running the show. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking backward when I pictured my future. Almost a year after the motel, life had settled into something that felt like mine again. It was a Saturday. Elena and I had just finished lunch at a small downtown cafe. Brick walls, chalkboard menu, decent coffee. We stepped outside into one of those pop-up craft fairs that take over entire blocks. Tents, folding tables, hand-painted signs. She wrapped her arm through mine, pointing out stupidly overpriced candles and wooden signs with fake deep quotes. We were laughing about one of them when I saw her. Behind a plastic folding table under a cheap blue canopy, Lauren sat with rows of handmade bracelets and necklaces laid out on a black cloth. A handwritten sign, custom pieces available. She looked thinner. Her clothes had that faded, washed one too many times look. Her shoulders slumped between customers. The smile she gave people never made it to her eyes. I noticed it all in seconds. Numbers guy, pattern guy. I always see the details. For a heartbeat, our eyes locked. Time didn't stop. It just slowed enough for me to feel the old life flicker in the background. Wedding photos, Sunday dinners, GPS pings at a motel. Then it was gone. She shot to her feet like her body moved before her brain caught up. Her face went from shock to something like hope, desperation mixed in. Like maybe this was her moment to unload an apology speech she'd rehearsed in the mirror. I didn't give her that opening. I gave her a small nod. Polite, distant. The kind you give someone you vaguely recognize from a college class you barely remember. Then I turned slightly toward Elena and rested my hand lightly on her back as we walked past. No speeding up. No looking back. No petty satisfaction. Just a clean line between what I used to be and who I am now. By the time we reached the next block, Lauren was just another booth in the rearview. Background noise in a life she no longer had access to. After the divorce papers were signed and stamped, there was one last piece of that whole mess sitting on my nightstand. The smartwatch. For weeks, it just lay there, face dark, band curled like some dead thing. The same device that had turned a gut feeling into evidence now looked like a reminder I never asked for. One night, I picked it up and really looked at it. It was still expensive, still functional, still useful. But I realized something simple. I didn't want to be the man who needed a device to tell him what his own eyes and instincts already knew. So I wiped it, factory reset, deleted the app from my phone. The next day, on my lunch break, I walked it back into the same electronics store where I'd bought it. The kid at the counter scanned the box, checked the serial, clicked a few times. "You're still inside the return window," he said. "Full refund." He handed me the receipt, and it hit me in a quiet way. I'd gotten my money back on the watch. Everything else I'd paid full price for. I walked out lighter, not because of the cash, but because I'd closed the loop. The tool did its job. The story it uncovered was over. I didn't need it anymore. Since then, I've learned to read people the way I read numbers. Not paranoid. Not hunting for betrayal in every sentence. just paying attention. Rushed explanations that don't match the timeline. Tiny inconsistencies that keep repeating. Words that say, "You're my priority," while actions scream, "You're my backup plan." You don't need spyware for that. You just have to stop explaining away what's right in front of you because you're scared of what it will mean. Sometimes, late at night in my new place, when the city noise fades, my mind still drifts back to that beep. That shrill, insistent sound bursting through the phone. Her gasp. The male voice in the background. My own voice, calm and cold, telling her I was standing outside the motel. For a long time, that memory felt like a knife, sharp, hot, embedded deep. Now it's more like a light switch in my head. The moment everything snapped into focus. The second I stopped living inside the version of our marriage I wanted to believe in and finally looked at the one that actually existed. I don't pretend it didn't hurt. It did. It ripped through my expectations, my plans, my sense of what kind of man I was that this could happen on my watch. But here's the thing I had to learn the hard way. Their betrayal said more about their character than about my worth. Lauren didn't cheat because I forgot an anniversary or worked late. Josh didn't betray me because I failed some secret friendship test. They did what they did because, under pressure and temptation, that's who they were. That realization doesn't erase the damage. It just puts it in the right column. I made a decision somewhere between the motel and the courtroom. I was not going to let their choices turn me into a bitter, paranoid shell who sees every woman as a liar and every friend as a snake. I chose wiser over colder. Now, when I meet someone new, I don't interrogate them. I just listen longer, watch closer. I compare what they say with what they do. And when the gap between those two gets wide, I don't ignore it for the sake of keeping the peace. I don't chase. I don't beg. And I don't negotiate my self-respect to keep someone who's already halfway out the door. Lauren and Josh used to be the center of the story in my head. Main characters in the worst chapter of my life. Over time, they've shrunk. They're not villains with superpowers. They're not curses. They're typos. Bad ones, sure. Costly ones. But still just typos. I corrected them. I took my pen back and rewrote the rest of the sentence without the minute. New apartment. New routines. New woman in my life who understands boundaries because she's had hers crossed too. A new version of myself that doesn't base his entire identity on being somebody's husband or somebody's best friend. If you're listening to this because you're where I was, staring at signs you don't want to admit are signs, hear this part clearly. The real victory wasn't catching them at that motel. That was just the reveal. The victory was what came after. It was packing those suitcases instead of packing my pride away. It was walking into that courtroom standing up straight. It was selling a house that looked perfect from the outside but was rotting from the inside. It was saying no to a second chance that would have just been a slower death. Most of all, it was deciding I would rather eat alone at a small table with my dignity intact than sit at a feast where the main course is scraps of honesty and half-truths. Lauren and Josh? They're footnotes now. The plot twist was never them. The real twist was me choosing myself.